Alright, people, review of the week time. So, before we start and talk about some of the news and stuff like that was announced over the course of the week and some of the things that have happened over the weekend with regards to news and interviews and stuff like that, let's just talk about some of the cards that happened last night. Now, Frank Martin was fighting, but I didn't actually get a chance to see that fight. I've heard a few people say that it was a bit, controversial, so I've been a bit busy. I haven't had a chance to actually look at the fight, or really the card, truth be told. But I did get a chance to watch the DAZN card that was on last night, as well as the DAZN card that was over in the States. And I didn't see much of this card. I did see the Josh Kelly fight, and workmanlike performance by Josh Kelly. He's been mentioning Conor Benn the run up to this fight, and Kelly is very athletic. He is very talented. He proved me wrong against Troy Williamson, who was actually also fighting on the undercard as well. But I still just think Kelly he's got a limit to his level, if that makes sense. Like, I think British level, domestic level, he's fine. But as we saw against Avanesian, when he stepped up to European level, it really just fell apart. That was a very big capitulation in that fight. He started well the first 2 rounds and just went downhill very quickly. And to be honest with you, in the Troy Williams fight, he was very, very good. But the fights prior to that, he hadn't been looking good at all. He'd been looking very lackluster, truth be told. And this was kind of a bit in the middle. Kelly did what he needed to do. It was a good performance, to an extent anyway, and he moves on. But they're talking about world honours now for Josh Kelly. I can't see that. Certainly not at 155 pounds. 54 pounds, sorry. However, almost definitely Charlo's going to be vacating all those belts because he's obviously fighting Canelo, so I can't see him going back down to 154. So they will be stagnated, or they will be fractured, I should say. So will Kelly potentially get an easy crack at one of those titles? That could be what Kalle Sauerland is looking to do. I do not know. In terms of the undercard, Troy Williamson was on the card. Steve Robinson took an L. No one should be surprised there. The only surprise is he wasn't stopped. Oliver Zarine versus Jay Byrne. Jay Byrne going back to becoming a journeyman again. Fair play to him. But that was pretty much it. That was all that was on the card there. In terms of the one that was over in the States, I only seen 2 fights on this card, and they were the 2 fights I really wanted to see, which was Jermaine Franklin. Obviously, this is his first fight since the Joshua fight, his first win for a while now. Obviously, he's come back of 2 back-to-back losses. He fought Isaac Gutierrez, beat him on points. But the main fight I was looking at was Andy Cruz versus Juan Carlos Burgos. He'd never been stopped before, but still is a very useful operator. His last fight was against Keyshawn Davis, and obviously that's relevant because Keyshawn Davis and Andy Cruz rivaled in the amateurs. Andy Cruz winning all those fights. Andy Cruz is absolutely tremendous. Like, this fight here, 2 of the judges gave Andy Cruz every round, 1 judge gave the opponent 2 rounds. Andy Cruz won every round. He looked tremendous. He was never going to stop this guy because this guy durable, and I think Andy Cruz, if I have one kind of critique, I would say he probably does need to try and get a little bit more pop in his punches. But in terms of him as an actual fighter, I mean, this guy is tremendous. He has a pro look to him. He's a pro look to his style, despite the fact he's been an amateur for so long. And I'm glad we are going to get the chance to see him, because I think he is a tremendous talent. I think he's going to do great things at 135 pounds. And it's really going to be a case of when, not if, will him and Keyshawn Davis have that fight over the 12 rounds in the pro games. Because to me, it just seems inevitable that that fight is going to happen. Obviously, Keyshawn Davis. It's interesting because Keyshawn Davis actually was... Well, Keyshawn Davis had a couple of pro fights before he inevitably turned... Well, before the amateurs, actually, before the Olympics, then he inevitably turned over. But he turned over with Top Rank. And I wonder why. I wonder, did Eddie Hearn have it lined up? Maybe that he was going to get... I don't know. I'm just only surmising there. But I'd hope that wouldn't be an issue. I'd hope that the 2 of them can get that fight over the line whenever it comes. They'll obviously try and do it when there's a title on the line or something like that. But, man, that fight right there just has me kind of thinking, yes, those 2 in the same division, because they're both absolutely tremendous. I should also point out that I forgot this. Actually, I didn't see the fight, but I'm only seeing here on Twitter that Dan Aziz actually fought last night over there in Italy. Sandor Martin was main eventing. I think that someone said it was on Channel 5, not mistaken, but I didn't get a chance to see. Apparently Dan Aziz won on points. It was only like an 8-rounder or something, but it's revealed that he has now signed to fight Joshua Buatsi. So Dan Aziz agreeing to fight Joshua Buatsi. That's going to be very, very interesting. So there was a lot of talk, and some people were saying that Dan Aziz was offered a deal with Eddie Hearn and Matchroom to fight Dimitri Bivol, because obviously Dimitri Bivol, now that Canelo is over with PBC, well, he's got no fight lined up. He's actually got nothing really lined up that we know of. So some people were suggesting that maybe he would go to Matchroom and just say, no, I don't want the Joshua Buatsi fight, I'd rather have a world title fight. And for me, I kind of thought that might actually potentially be likely. The reason why I say that is because Dan Aziz is in his mid-30s. And the money he would probably get to fight Dimitri Bivol, I would imagine, is more than he would have got to fight Joshua Buatsi. Could be wrong, don't know what they're being paid. But I thought someone that late on in their career, maybe they would just decide to go down the road of a world title fight and a big payday. But obviously not. He's obviously deciding, he's confident, and he's going to go in there with Joshua Buatsi whenever. Apparently he's signed to fight his end. I think it's a good fight, don't get me wrong. I would be making Joshua Buatsi favourite, but Dan Aziz has improved immensely over the last couple of years, dramatically over the last few years. So there's always a chance there with Dan Aziz. Let's see. I'm looking forward to when they announce that fight. I really am. Another fight that we're waiting on an announcement for, but Chris Eubank Jr. seemed to have let the cat out of the bag by tweeting there on Friday, I think it was, that him versus Liam Smith 2 is now essentially done, by all looking at this here, for the 2nd of September at the O2. Now that's interesting for a variety of reasons. One, because Liam Smith's the one who actually pulled out of the Eubank Jr. fight twice with an injury, with a justifiable injury. So it's been rescheduled. Now after the second pullout, there was a lot of rumours, and there was a lot of people actually saying that the Eubank versus Ben fight was a done deal to take place wherever. So what is, we're hearing a lot of chop and change with this whole Eubank Smith situation and Eubank Ben situation. Now obviously Conor Ben, there was reports stating that he was to find out last week that would be the week where we'd have a kind of resolution from UCAD, or we'd have a bit more understanding as to whether he's going to be banned or not. We're no sooner to figuring that out now. And I wonder, is this maybe Eubank Jr. preempted a ban maybe? Or because it's weird, right? Like it's something new every kind of time we hear this kind of Ben situation, that this is the reason now and this is the reason. So I don't know what's going on there with the whole UCAD situation. If he gets banned, how much would they backdate it to? Because let's just say they gave him, because see, this is what you need to remember, like, for me it's kind of like, would I be surprised if they ban him? No. But would it surprise me as well if they just gave him a backdated ban? So let's say they say, we're going to give you a year ban, backdated to August. Well then, like, all he has to do is wait until August and he's good to go. So it's not really that much of a ban. That wouldn't surprise me. But if that was the case, surely Team Eubank would be looking to go down that road. So it's a very, very strange situation. In terms of the fight happening in the O2, that is a bit of a head scratcher. Like, I suppose maybe it's not really that much of a head scratcher, because obviously the rematch was being talked about in Manchester, in the Manchester Arena. And, me seeing the O2, obviously Manchester, London, they're miles apart. That could be just something to do with the fact that maybe the Manchester Arena is booked for that particular day and the O2 isn't. That's more than likely what that is. But Liam Smith versus Eubank Jr. 2 reportedly is next. We're just waiting on confirmation with that. It's going to be interesting. I definitely give Eubank Jr. more of a shot in the rematch than others, but I would still be picking Liam Smith. Alright, but I definitely can see how he could win that fight. I think that there was definitely mistakes made, and I think he could rectify them, because stylistically Liam Smith should be quite tailor-made for Eubank Jr. But Eubank in that fight made a hard time of it the first couple of rounds, and it was only in the third round where he started really kind of finding his range and letting the uppercuts go, and obviously by the fourth round he was knocked out. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how the rematch unfolds. Waiting for an announcement on the rematch, but it's going to be very interesting to see how it unfolds. And in terms of some other fights that have been announced, the British Boxing Board of Control have now ordered Fabio Wadley to defend his title, his British heavyweight title, against David Adelaide next. So that's going to be interesting to see, will Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn, will they go down that road? of going down for purse bids, or will they be able to make that fight itself? Going to be very, very, very interesting. I quite look forward to that fight. I think that would be an interesting fight. I think both guys, it could be very interesting. I'll put it like that fight. In terms of some of the other news that's knocking around, I don't want to be just labouring on about the whole Fury, Alexander Usyk, Francis Ngannou situation. Jack Catterall, I'm seeing here, is now welcomed Jorge Linares as an opponent next. I thought they were going to try and do Jack Catterall versus Regis Prograis. At this point now, I'm not really interested in seeing Jorge Linares, to be honest with you, at all in a boxing ring. I think his best days are well and truly gone. We'll wait and see what happens there. Hearn has revealed actually that he is in talks to make Jaime Munguia versus Edgar Berlanga next, with official offers immediate, as the Zone want that fight to happen next. Apparently, Berlanga versus Munguia, you know, that's an interesting one, because Munguia is, well, has he even left middleweight? Like, I know he's kind of in between. So Munguia at 168 versus Berlanga, Mexico versus Puerto Rico. I don't know who I'd really take in that fight, because Berlanga has not impressed me in the slightest, but Munguia was looking very good at 154 pounds, but he's not looked the same since he's gone to 160. I don't see it. I really just don't see that same fire in him. The work rate is still there, but he's making fights way harder than they need to be now at 160 pounds than he was at 154 pounds, as you would expect. I think with him going to 168 pounds against Berlanga, who I don't really rate, but I think you're going to have a real hard time there. Some fights for the undercard of Joshua versus Dillian Whyte 2 have been announced, and Filip Hrgović is going to fight Dempsey McKean. So Dempsey McKean is a name we've heard thrown around as a potential opponent for Joshua, as a potential opponent for Tyson Fury. Well, he's going to fight Filip Hrgović, and it's going to be on the undercard of Joshua versus Whyte, a good heavyweight scrap. That's always good. Johnny Fisher is going to fight Harry Armstrong, not Henry Armstrong, of course not. Name rings a bell. Where have I seen him before? Who did he fight? Oh yeah, he fought in the Adam Museum undercard back at the start of the year. So 3 heavyweight fights on this card. Dempsey McKean versus Hrgović. Hrgović hasn't fought since he's fought Zhang last year. Yeah, no, he hasn't. So, oh jeez, it's nearly a year. So that's going to be interesting to see how Hrgović looks a year out of the ring. I can't imagine Dempsey McKean is going to pose him that many problems, truth be told. I've not really been massively gone on Dempsey McKean. So at least we're getting some heavyweight fights. You know, that's what Eddie Hearn needs to be getting back to. So Eddie Hearn needs, when he was in his heyday, a lot of these cards he was putting on, if they weren't main evented by heavyweights, they had a lot of heavyweights on the undercard. And that's what I think the fans want, and that's what we need. Loads of heavyweight scraps on the undercard, because the heavyweight division is, as far as I'm concerned, the best in boxing, and it has that fan appeal to it for whatever it is. And I can't really explain it, but we love seeing big guys who can punch go in there. So the more heavyweights, the better, and I think he's doing the right thing, putting lots of heavyweight fights on this card. There's 3 already on this card. Let's hope, maybe see if he can get some more over the line. I don't know. Speaking of the main heavyweights, Alexander Usyk was interviewed by Sky Sports on his thoughts on the Tyson Fury versus Francis Ngannou situation, which I'm going to talk about a little bit now in a sec, because Adam Catterall really got under old Fisheye skin in a recent interview. I'll talk about that now in a sec. But Usyk, to quote him here, he says, "Doesn't it seem strange that instead of choosing to fight a top 10 guy, he's choosing someone who has never boxed before? Greedy belly is afraid of me." You know, you gotta love the greedy belly situation. And you know, Alexander Usyk had the press conference there this week for the Dubois fight, which, you know, well, obviously we talked about at length. But what really is interesting about this whole situation is the way Frank Warren has gone into damage limitations, and the way Frank Warren has been speaking about this whole situation. So he went on TalkSport on Saturday night with Adam Catterall and Garrett A. Davis. Adam Catterall was the one really asking the difficult questions. Garrett A. Davis was just sat there like a ghost for the most part. But the whole situation, Frank Warren, and judging by the comment section that were left on that actual post, and the video was up live on YouTube still on TalkSport's channel, and the comment section is just awash with people saying this is a joke from Frank Warren is coming out with the absolute BS he's talking. He was saying that Usyk never intended to fight in Wembley Stadium, right? In spite of the fact that You had Sugar Hill Stewart, and obviously John Fury obviously gave an interview where he was, going in on Sugar Hill Stewart for letting the cat out at the back. He's saying it was a lie, but let's be frank, the only person who's lying is John Fury. Sugar Hill Stewart let the cat out of the bag. So Frank Warren was saying that Usyk never intended to fight in Wembley Stadium, that it was always intended to be in Saudi Arabia, and that Alexander Usyk was basically the one ducking, despite the fact Usyk agreed to all of Tyson Fury's terms, but Tyson Fury kept moving the goalpost, and bringing up the fact that he was actually offering Joshua 60-40, but he wasn't offering Usyk 60-40. Adam Catterall was bringing that up. Frank Warren was trying to deflect all that by saying, oh, that's not true, this, that, and the other, and it's like, hang on a second, this is what Adam Catterall was saying, and credit to Adam Catterall for asking these questions. He was like, Frank, he's making videos, Tyson Fury, on Instagram of himself making these demands. So how can you say they're not true when the guy is there online saying it, these are my demands, and Alexander Usyk is agreeing to it? And of course Frank Warren in that interview was trying his best to deflect as much as he can, trying his best to just shout over and talk over Adam Catterall, because Adam Catterall was the one who was really leading the whole interview. And he was trying to say, like, oh, no, you're talking nonsense, it's this, it's that, and this is how it is. You're not speaking the fact, this is fact. It's like, no, you're not, Frank. You're not. At the end of the day, your guy is making these, and here's the thing, all these negotiations, because of your fighter, Tyson Fury, he's making them very open. He's making the negotiations very open. He's going on social media. He's saying this. He's saying that. He's giving Usyk deadlines. He's giving Joshua deadlines. He's the one who's giving all these deadlines. So for you to come on and say, oh, this is all not true, your guy is there doing it. It's up there for the world to see. So you're talking absolute nonsense there when Adam Catterall was trying to say to Frank, how come that you're saying that Fury versus Ngannou is a perfectly fine fight, perfectly acceptable, but then in the same breath you're saying that Dillian Whyte versus Joshua 2 isn't an acceptable fight? And he's like, well, he's the best in his sport and he's fighting Tyson, the best in his... How is that? It's like, Fury's heavyweight champion of the world. He should be trying to unify or fight the top contenders, as Usyk said there, but he's not doing it. And then you're having a go and saying, just because Tyson Fury beat Dillian Whyte, Anthony Joshua shouldn't be fighting him. Well, at the end of the day, Anthony Joshua is not a heavyweight champion. He's not even in the world title picture. Eddie Hearn hasn't even talked about world titles or anything like that, nor has Anthony Joshua. This is a comeback fight. This is a rehabilitation fight. Frank Warren is trying to indicate that they're selling this as like a world, class fight, that there's world honors at stake, which there isn't. And do I think it should be on pay-per-view? No. But at the end of the day, it is still a comeback fight, lest we forget. It's not Anthony Joshua, his next step to a world title, he's got to get through Dillian Whyte. It's not like that. So Frank Warren trying to undermine this fight and say, oh, it's terrible fights, this, that, and it's a comeback fight. He's literally on the comeback trail. He's lost. Prior to his last win, he lost his last 2 fights. It will be more brutal. Since 2019, he's only won 2 fights. So what? You're implying what? That this is like a world title fight and this is a world honors fight and it's being sold like that? It's not. But yet your guy, who's a heavyweight champion, is not even attempting to unify, and yet you're saying that it's fine to fight Ngannou. And there was 2 parts of this interview that really irked me. Really irked me. The first one was when Adam, I hope I wasn't saying Jack Catterall. Adam Catterall said, what's wrong with fighting one of the contenders? And Warren says, well, who are the contenders? There isn't any. And he says, Makhmedov, Bacoli, Frank Sanchez. And Warren laughed. He actually giggled when he mentioned those, as if they're not worthy of fighting Tyson Fury. They're in the top 10 of WBC. They can get a crack. And then he turns around and says, oh, well, they won't bring any money. What? I thought for one Fury didn't care about money, and I thought for one he's the best of his generation, as Frank Warren kept on saying. Well, he's not fighting the best fighters of his generation, so how can you actually say that he is the best of his generation? Because he's not fighting any of those fighters. And when you bring up the Makhmedovs, the Bacolis, the Sanchez's, Frank Warren laughs, as if to say, don't expect us to fight them. Well, yeah, I do expect it. And everyone should expect it if your guy is, quote-unquote, the best of his generation. Well, flip and fight the best of his generation. Who has he fought in his generation? Wilder, Klitschko, and Dillian Whyte. That's it. Joshua, not fought. Usyk, not fought. Ruiz, not fought. Hrgovic, not fought. Sanchez, could go on, not fought. You want to claim you're the best of your generation. Flip and prove it and fight these guys. Don't laugh at the idea of it. Actually embrace it. And then at the end, which I felt was probably the most revealing part of this whole interview, was when Gareth A. Davis finally chived in and said, Frank, when this whole Fury versus Ngannou situation is over and when they've done their little fight, what will happen next? Will you go and make Undisputed? And he said, and I quote, depending on who has the belt. What? Excuse me? Depending on who has the belts? So if Alexander, I interpret that to mean if Alexander Usyk has the belts, no. But if Daniel Dubois has them, yes. Surely if you're going to make Undisputed, it's a simple yes or no. It should be a simple yes or no. Yes, we'll make Undisputed, not depending on who has the belts. Such nonsense coming out of Frank Warren's mouth. It was absolutely ridiculous. It really, truly was. I think that's I'm going to leave it on that note. I don't leave it on a bad note, but that interview really irked the you-know-what out of me. Listening to Frank Warren, it was real damage limitations from Frank Warren. It really was. And I think Frank Warren is doing more harm than good with these interviews, to be honest. He really is. I'm pretty sure, I think that's pretty much, because there's not really been an awful lot of news over the last couple of days to really talk about this. Obviously been the fights that have been going on, but I think that's pretty much it. So I will leave you with that. I'm going to upload this probably on a Monday morning for a change. I'm going to do this on a Monday morning for a change, because I haven't been doing that a lot lately. It's people like that, doing it like first thing in a Monday morning. I hope you enjoy it whenever you do watch it. If you watch it in the morning or in the evening or whatever. If you watch it a week later, I hope you enjoyed it. If it's the first time watching, I hope you enjoy it. For now, lads and lasses, I'll leave you with that. I hope you all have a great week. I hope this kickstarts your week in a good way, even though the rant at the end. Warren boiled my blood in that interview. What can I say? But I hope you enjoyed it, people. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. I hope you all have a great week. I hope everyone has something good happen to them this week, as I always say. If nothing does, at least you're still here. That's the main thing. At least we're all still keeping going. So, hope you all have a great week, lads. Smash the like button on the way in or on the way out. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe. I'm enjoying doing this, and may the numbers keep showing. May the numbers keep growing as well. And let's keep it on track. Let's get going. Let's keep it going. Hope you enjoy it.